With all the bad things going on in the Pokemon TCG recently, I've ended up down a rules rabbit hole, and it's been pretty crazy. Also, I've learned that most players don't really understand the rules, and that's why there's so many problems and toxicity and bad player behavior. And it's really been inspired by Michael Pramwat, a historic cheater that was also trying to cheat by rule sharking the opponent, and then complains that cheating is too easy in Pokemon. The rules just let people break game states for zero consequences. And then I ended up at the rulebook for 2012, and it really brings us all together in a pretty crazy way. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts down below. But this has always been in the rules, and this is also something I brought up with Makani, that the head judge said, nah man, we gotta kick this minor out of the event, there's nothing we can do, even though it's always been about de-escalating penalties, especially if like no malice or severe intent could be found. And with Makani being apologetic, yeah, that should have been de-escalated to probably nothing. I don't know what happens there, but kicking him out of the event and disqualifying him, absolutely not the play. Pokemon Organized Play tournament organizers seek to create fun, safe, and non-stressful play experiences for our players, and that's a big thing. It's about fun first and not make it to where people are just like nervous that if they accidentally do something wrong, it's going to be like a game loss, or then there's going to be like a big argument or a lot of controversy coming around from it. That's why there's also a deviating from the recommended penalties rule. The penalties for infractions are simply recommendations and may be increased or decreased in severity based on circumstances. And then we have this thing right here which kind of gets weird for this situation. Younger or less experienced players should always be given the benefit of the doubt, as they are often learning the game and most of the mistakes they make are accidental. So this happened at an international, and that's kind of like a big high championship point event, but internationals are now entry level. That back in the day, to go to a national event, you actually had to qualify for it. But now anyone can just kind of show up as their first event, maybe even like fluke to a high ranking and then end up with a ton of championship points. But the more serious competitive players are also going to be taken a lot more seriously because there's more at stake. But a big encouragement on judges is to not come down too hard on the rules, because people are just trying to have fun playing Pokemon, especially over simple mistakes or accidents. And Michael even says, like, he accidentally flipped over half my deck, but then Michael wanted to escalate the penalty. I was told it would only be a warning, and I appealed because that's inconsistent with how other reveal situations work. Not really, we can get into that more later, but I want to jump to the good stuff. Back in 2022, the rules were so soft that drawing an extra card was a minor gameplay error that starts at a caution and escalates to a warning. And even if you did commit a major infraction, warning and then single prize card. That is insane. And it also kind of shows that, like, Michael's just being a jerk here. I now understand why cheating is so easy in Pokemon. The rules just let people break game states for zero consequences. Have you seen the older rules? Now it's way more severe. So that's a major gameplay error, drawing an extra card, which just goes to double prize card. And we can see an update to the recommended penalties rule. Pokemon Organized Play acknowledges the myriad of different factors at play within each individual ruling and requests that professors assess each situation based on its own potential to provide advantage or to confuse the game state. In support, Play Pokemon adopts guidelines rather than rules when it comes to penalties. And they even underline that. These are guidelines. They are simply recommendations, may be increased or decreased in severity depending on the circumstance. This may include the point at which the error was caught, and the ease with the corresponding action may be reversed. And that's another big one, how easy it is to reverse this. So what happened was, player accidentally knocked over the deck while going into the opponent's discard pile. So with the deck accidentally being flipped over, and what I'd imagine is an exaggeration from a cheater that's also trying to cheat in this very circumstance, flipped over half my deck, we both saw the contents and called a judge. You don't know what the opponent saw or didn't see, and I don't know how you actually like flip over half a deck to where all the cards are going to be visible. Like, at that point you can't call an accident, you have to almost table flip the deck. Then I was told it would only be a warning, and I appealed because that's inconsistent with how other reveal situations are dealt with. Yeah, but this isn't your standard reveal situation, and it also isn't your standard irreversible game state. And right here is where Michael is trying to cheat by escalating the penalty to disadvantage his opponent in a high-stakes tournament. And it's much harder to give him the benefit of the doubt since he's a historic cheater that was caught stacking at Worlds. But now you can see this. Now I don't think my opponent was cheating. It was an honest mistake. So that's just like an admittance that this needed to be a minor. The judges did what they were supposed to do, but the rules they followed are just nonsense. It's this reason that causes rifts between players and judges while letting cheaters skate by unpunished. Again, like, have you seen the old rules? And that's why there was so much cheating back in the day that we get more and more severe, like, penalties. But we also can see that this has refined the rules very well. And according to the rules, the judge did what he was supposed to. So that means toxic cheating players like Michael are the ones that are actually making the rifts between players and judges by trying to escalate penalties to disadvantage opponents, which is cheating. It's unsporting. And this channel has covered countless acts of unsporting conduct in the play Pokemon community over the last decade, so this kind of seems on brand. And if we break down the rules, minor gameplay errors have little to no effect on the progress of the game, can be fixed or rewound completely with little effort. And that's where we can see it. Yeah, like, it's not hard to flip the deck back over, shuffle to re-randomize it, because Pramwat could have also seen the cards, and the judge, according to even the guidelines, was like, yeah, it was fixed with little effort, don't have to do anything crazy. This has all the makings of a minor gameplay error. Especially because it was done by accident. And then, as I was like kind of going through other rules and stuff, I was finding just like crazy posts of how all of this has changed over time. So 5 years ago, hello all, friendly neighborhood professor here with some important announcements. Today the penalty guidelines were updated with tweaks to certain penalties and fixes. While this is mostly pointed at judges, it affects players too. First and foremost, reveal and replace has been scrapped. When a player draws an extra card or sees the top card of their deck by accident, proper protocol will be for the judge to reveal the extra card to the opponent, and these cards will be shuffled back into the deck. And here we can actually see the change for the drawing an extra card rule. Drawing an extra card has been increased to major for tier 2 events. The penalty for drawing an extra card has been increased to a prize loss. So yeah, and we can see like that's going to be more advantage gaining, especially also more room to cheat. That if you're trying to sneak drawing cards to have that card advantage, then you can, and if it goes undetected, that's just straight cheating. So people are going to be deliberately trying to do that, which is why it's been escalated to a prize loss. We don't have an epidemic of people knocking over players' decks to kind of see 5 cards that they might have in their deck list. And because it was given a warning, that means it's documented, so if this happens with the player again, you can escalate it to a more severe penalty, and at that point you can even make a case for cheating, which goes to game loss or just straight up disqualification. And then we can see more rules changes where it's like, oh man, cheating was just out of control, but it still is. So it just kind of shows like, yeah, Pokemon TCG has always been awful and toxic because the Pokemon community has always been awful and toxic and just filled with scumbags and cheaters. And we see that in VGC as well, with like Wolfie VGC just cheating his entire career. So judges have been advised to increase the penalty for slow play to a prize card loss after the first warning. And also used to be like prize losses to now it's double and quadruple prize cards because there's just too many people trying to get away with cheating, and you have to have severe penalties to either rectify the situation properly or discourage cheating from taking place. Even rushing an opponent can now be ruled as unsporting conduct if a judge determines that the action was done to manipulate or intimidate the opponent into action. This is a game loss. Now you don't hear about this one much, but it's also one of those things where a lot of players aren't familiar with the rules, so this is probably happening a lot to people and could just be like handed out a lot more frequently. And speaking of slow play, we can just kind of refresh on the history of cheating in the Pokemon TCG. I remember covering this where a player in the finals was penalized and ended up losing the game for slow play. But then it came out like, yeah, he actually already had warnings in previous matches. So people were like, oh man, the rules are too tough. Now, apparently, the rules are too soft or something. So it's, yeah, it's, again, just scumbags in Pokemon TCG, what's new? And then, like, more information came out. It's like, oh, wait, no, the dude absolutely deserved it. And then threads like this are good because you actually see a lot of stories as to, like, how bad it is for a lot of players just trying to enjoy playing the Pokemon TCG. Coming from someone that's been on the wrong end of slow playing, I think this decision was completely justified, and I'm glad they gave him a penalty. It wasn't like his first warning, he was given plenty of warnings throughout the tournament, and the play that finally gave him a punishment was a 70-second stall of gameplay. Back in 2016, I got 10th place at Seattle Regionals with something like 5-0-4. Most of my draws were because I had a favored matchup with my opponent, and they decided to play extremely slow to force the draw. Called multiple judges, and every time it would result in a warning to the opponent. Then a couple turns later, they would go back to the same slow play. This is what happened in my 2012 regionals at VGC, where it was actually against the rules explicitly in VGC to slow play, and also the general conduct rules. So yeah, like, it's unfortunate when, like, there's just so much cheating going on, and now for over a decade. I hope now that this penalty was issued at the highest stage of play, more judges will be willing to enforce stricter rules for slow play. I hope it will discourage others from trying to get away with it. And even 4 years ago, with just like the sad reality, correct, good sportsmanship has been lost. We also just have some other stuff, you know, what are prize penalties? Prize penalties used to be different. That it would be that the prize cards were taken, but now the prize cards are just like, oh, you don't need those two to win anymore, because people were actually manipulating prizes to win. I had this thought while watching championships. Has there ever been a player that has intentionally taken prize cards they didn't earn so their opponent would be awarded prize penalties? I could imagine this happening with Ace Trainer now, or with Counter Energy, but I don't know if it's ever happened. Now, of course, this would be cheating, but it is kind of funny that, like, people were trying to get away with that, and it became a problem where, like, you intentionally make a major error to then, like, set up the game state to where you manipulate the prize, like, advantage-disadvantage situation to then try to win off of that. Until a couple of years ago, a 2-prize penalty meant that your opponent could immediately take 2 prizes, which seems more logical. The reason it changed is that around that time, a bunch of cards were released with mechanics that depended on how many prizes the opponent had taken. As a result, there were potential scenarios where the player being assessed the prize penalty could benefit from the opponent taking the right number of prizes. Under new rule, prizes don't count as being taken, they just don't need to be taken to win the game. So yeah, like, this crazy thing about the rules, how, like, drawing an extra card was a minor. Major wasn't a prize card, like, wasn't initially a prize card, and it was only 1 prize card instead of 2 or 4, and then, like, it just jumps to severe on a game loss. But, like, this is a crazy irreparable game state. And if you want to learn more about game state reversibility, it's actually in the modern rules, and Pram the Cheater just wants to ignore all of that. So if for some reason you want to attend a Play Pokemon event, please inform yourself with the rules and procedure. At this point, I don't really see why anyone would want to participate in anything. Play Pokemon is corrupt, VGC is all hackers, there's a ton of cheaters in the TCG, and most of the TCG players are scumbags anyway, because the Pokemon community is toxic, but I will keep on exposing this and hoping that something is done about player behavior. So hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.